Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining. I am Dr. Noni Davis, coming to you from Sya Academy, and I am a legacy owner. Let me start there um, of Sya Academy, and I give thanks for my father, the late William Edward Davis, and my mother, Sylvia Davis, who is still with us, who co-founded, who I co-founded the school with, and we are still here, 30 years down the road. And so, welcome to Dr. Noni Shule. And I am going to continue. I started writing, everybody. I'm going to continue this story about the brilliance and the intelligence and the bravery of of the historical legacy of our ancestors. Who participated as who were African spies during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. It's such an intriguing story to know that your ancestors were willing to risk their lives because during the most intensely brutal existent on this earth, we have had this UN resolution that states that Africa and the enslavement of Africans trafficked across the Atlantic was one of the most brutal acts in history. Because for 400 years we're still engaged. I mean, the racism is still welded into the nature of this country and the policies of this country and the world, actually. And so for our ancestors to be brave enough to stand up and fight for themselves is just it's incredible. And so today I want to continue. Pick two more. Spoke last week about uh, three Civil War spies who were part of the Black Dispatch, which is a name I had no knowledge of before I started this research process. And this Black Dispatch or consisted of African American spies. Some of them were free and some of them were enslaved. And they were determined to gain their freedom. And according to Robert E. Lee, who was the leader of the Confederacy Army, he even said, hey, these Black people are the reason why we lost the Confederacy, why the Confederacy lost. And so, in addition to the Union soldiers, the Black soldiers who fought in the war, we also had our own spy network, the Black Dispatch, that was doing their thing. So I just honor them and give thanks for them because it's just amazing what these, and we need to have a collective of these stories, and I'm gonna do that thing. I'm gonna put them out. They probably have something out there, but I'm gonna put my little spin on it too. So, um, my ancestors are from the Tidewater, Virginia area. So I want to open with that because talked about a little bit because quite a few of these spies were located in that area because of their proximity to um, DC. And I think last week I talked about someone who was in Richmond. There was somebody who was in Fort Monroe area. Another person was in I think they were on the York River or whatever. And so, that was a very strategic area. And as we already also know, in Norfolk, Virginia was one of the main uh, throughways of the Underground Railroad. So it was popping. They were popping. It was popping. But mother's family is from Tidewater. And so I'm familiar with a lot of these places. Like I said, Fort Monroe. I'm familiar with Richmond. We lived in Richmond for a minute. And we also lived in Tidewater, Virginia, Hampton Roads. And my first three children were all born there. And so being from there is crazy because I didn't even know about. I was trying to remember, did I learn about this when I was in Virginia, and I just don't remember. But anyway, so the Black Dispatch, as these spies were called, um, by the Union soldiers, proved to be reliable sources of information regarding Confederate troops, the number of soldiers in those troops, the quality of life in these camps where they were stationed. Um, let's see. the location of where these people were located, how many ships were there, how many troops were there, and so today I want to introduce this lady. I forgot to bring my little pad down, but I'm just going to show her a picture. So today I'm going to introduce this lady. Her name is Mary Tuvestre. Tuvestre. Now, I've seen her name written Louvester or Louvester or whatever, but that's who this woman managed to do. I mean, it's amazing what she did. So I'm gonna try to tell you both of the stories, and we'll figure out what we don't know what is the truth or whatever. What's been embellished, I have no idea. But Mama Marae Tuvester was an African American woman who had been granted her freedom. Um, she lived in Norfolk, Virginia, which is like where I was living, and worked for an engineer. And this man's name was Captain Charles Dimmock, and he worked on the USS. Did I pull that up? The USS um, Merrimack. And what they wanted them to do was turn the USS Merrimack into, where is the picture of it? So this was the USS Merrimack, right? And so that was what the one a ship that he was working on. What he wanted to do was turn it into an ironclad. And ironclad was a um, um, ship made out of metal, right? I think they said it was either made out of copper or no, not copper, steel and iron or whatever. And so these ships were able to ram into people. These ships were able to sustain um, more uh, bombing or any kind of heavy duty fire on them. And so this guy, Charles Dimmock, was the engineer, and he was the person who was going to design, take the USS Merrimack and turn it into an ironclad, the CSS Virginia. So let me see if I can find CSS Virginia. So that was crazy. But anyway, so they have a couple of different stories of CSS Virginia. Oh no, Virginia. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. So he wanted to turn it into one of those. And so you can see, oh wow. Okay. Uh that's the CSS Virginia. So he had to that was going to be a serious plan. Anyway, so he was working at the naval shipyard and he was designing this thing. But as we talked about earlier, they did not pay any attention to black workers because they said, they're stupid, they can't read, their mental capacity is very insignificant. You know how this dodo head keeps saying that, that's low IQ person, Africans are low IQ people. And so we decided, okay, since we low IQ, we're gonna let you keep thinking that, and we're gonna do this reverse, and you're gonna find out. So anyway, she heard she was working for him, and like I said, his job was to transform the USS Merrimack into the CSS Virginia. And as usual, Africans were not, we were ignored. So this man had no concern about this housekeeper working in his house and leaving his plans all over the place, just like with Mary Bowser, working with Jefferson Davis. She can't read. She don't know what that means, whatever. Da, 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 da. But she overheard him while she was working there, talking about what he was going to do and how he was going to change this ship. This chick said, that is not good information because, oh my God, if they get this ironclad, we're going to be in trouble, and it's going to be a weapon used against the Union, and the Union, we can't have the Union losing like that. So he it was discussing the military capacity of the ship and how he was going to turn this iron into an ironclad, and how these were the first major warships, and they used steam propulsion and were heavily armed so you could have more weapons on them. And then, like I said, they were like wooden boats. They could sustain heavy artillery fire and explosives, and they could ram into a wooden ship and just knock that thing right on out. So although they were very um very solid, they were also very heavy. So he had to take that Merrimack, which means that man was really on it. He was going to turn the Merrimack into this. And so when Mary Tavester heard what Captain Dimmock was going to do, she said, "All right, bet." So what did she do? She stole a set of the plans. She found some of his plans and she stole a set of them. Now, I don't know whether he figured it out or not, but that chick said, "Okay, I'm out of here." So she took a set of the engineering drafts for the ship that the engineer had brought home from work. So he said he was going to work, and maybe he thought she threw them away. I don't know what happened. But anyway, she had to travel from Norfolk, Virginia to Washington, D.C. That is 194-mile uh, space of traveling. So that's crazy. That's what she had to do. And she did this to meet the Union, who is the man's name, the Union Secretary of the Navy, Gideon Welles. So they apparently, um, she was in contact with Union soldiers, and they made it possible for her to sneak up there and transported her to the Union Department of the Navy in Washington, D.C. And the Union Secretary of the Navy, his name was Gideon Welles. Now, there are other versions of the story. Like I said, one implies that Mary was recruited by Welles for the plans. We don't know. And however, she was able to pass on the copies of the plans for the USS Virginia to Wells, who documented her story. So in his documentation of how this thing came about, her name is mentioned. Um, and so I went and looked at another story about her. And in this other story, this is when they changed her name from Tuvester to Louves. And so but her information about the ironclad provided the Union Navy with an ability to strategize. Okay, so we know what he's doing. We can look at the plans, and he's going to build it like this, and he's going to build this like this. And they were able to strategize on how they could attack the ironclad. And one of the reasons why they had to make haste with this is because in the early stages of the war, like I mentioned last week, at Fort Monroe, the Union was not winning at first because, of course, they're fighting on whose territory? They're fighting in the Southern territory. You're fighting in the South against the South, and they were going to whoop your butt. So they needed them Africans because the Africans knew the terrain. They knew where everything was. They understood. They could be hide in plain sight. So they were like doing this crazy espionage. So, a little history. I found a little bit of history about Mary Truvester. She was born in 1812 in Norfolk, Virginia. They said that her mother was a free mulatto. Her father was a free mulatto from San Domingo, and her mother was a free African American. She was a free woman and licensed. Let's see. Okay, she was a free woman and licensed owner of a restaurant and a boarding house when she was young. So, and she adopted a 10-year-old boy named Mark Rene de Morty in 1839 and freed him when she was 21 years old. When he was 21 years old. So she was born in 1812, and so 1839 was she was like 27 years old when she set this boy free. All right, and now so then she married in 1844, which means she was in her 30s. She married a man on June 1st, 1844, at the St. Catholic Church in Norfolk, and his name was Michael Louvest, and he also was a freedman. They had three children. Her children were Susan, Ophelia, and Robert. I think Susan and Robert died. No, Ophelia and Robert died very young from yellow fever in 1855. And so that I think who else? There's several accounts of this yellow fever breakout among African Americans. I mean, I think when I read the story about Ona Judge, that's about that same time they were struggling with. I mean, they were having a problem with this. With the not no, hers is much later. But anyway, yellow fever was a big issue in Philadelphia as well. So apparently, Mary's husband was a shipyard worker at Norfolk, Virginia, and consequently, so was my ex-husband. He was a shipyard worker. So I was like, golly, that place is old. And he worked in the same space, the steaming, I think it is called a steaming space, steaming engineering. And they worked in the same location with this man named William Lyons. Now, William Lyons was a white guy, but he was also a Union sympathizer. So the story kind of, you know, gets murky here. Like perhaps her husband was talking to this guy, Mr. Lyons, and they were trying to figure out a way, maybe they knew about, of course, they had to know about Mr. Demick, the Captain Dimmock, and these plans he was going. So they said, we got to find a way to get somebody in there to get the plans. So this is another aspect of the story. So they think that maybe they found out that he needed a housekeeper or something like that, and so they were able to get Marie Louvester in there to work for him. And so, according to the story, she was able to get in there, overheard what was going on, and retrieve the plans. And then she was smuggled across Union lines to the Union Secretary's office, Mr. Wells. Now, this is the audacity. They said Mama Mary returned home to Norfolk during the Civil War. So this is why I was like, did he not know? Because she went right back home. And apparently Captain Dimmock never even found out what happened to his plans. I mean, there was no charges against her. She was not her husband. Nothing happened to them. So I was like, this is crazy. He don't even know how did he even realize his plans were taken? So it's really interesting. So the Levisters eventually gained ownership of their property on Nivison Street. That's where she lived. And following the war, continued to operate their restaurant and their boarding house, which is what she owned before, and well into the 1870s. And Mama Mary's husband, Michael died in 1880 from tuberculosis, and she died on October 31st, 1883, in her home around the age of 71. This is just incredible to me. So in 1868, going back to shortly after the war ended, about 4 years after the war ended, I could not find it, but they said that she wrote a letter to A.H. Kitty, who was the Commodore of the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. And in her letter, she explained how she did everything for our Navy and rescue his heroic defenders. But no one knows whether the man ever received the letter. But I mean, maybe there is. I couldn't find. I was looking all over for a copy of the letter because I wanted to just read what she said. But she was like, "Look, I'm taking credit for all this because I did it, and me and my husband, we helped y'all win this war. And without us, you wouldn't have known about that ironclad and may have set y'all back anyway." So no one knows where the Louvesters were buried, but it is presumed that they are at one of the Catholic cemeteries in Norfolk, Virginia. So I'm going to have to go up to Norfolk and learn some more stuff about this lady, because this is like awesome, as well as the other people go to. I need to go to Fort Monroe, and just get some military history of the Civil War there, and so I can write this book. Anyway, but I've already started. I'm gonna try to write a page a night. Anyway, so the next person I want to talk about is the brilliant, amazing Robert Smalls. Now, instead, he was not located in Virginia. He was from South Carolina, so he was in Charleston, South Carolina. And Robert Smalls was something else too. He was born in 1839, I guess about the same time. No, she was older than him. 1839 in Beaufort, South Carolina, and his daddy was probably the slave owner. But anyway, his mother was Lydia Polite, and he and his mother were enslaved by this man named Henry McKee. At the age of 12, McKee said, "Look, I'm going to hire Robert Smalls out." And he sent him down to Charleston and contracted him to be a waiter in a hotel. And so Smalls was separated from his mother. And then after a while, Mr. McGee, this plantation owner, decided to send Smalls to work for as a dock worker. All right. Now, the man, he was working for this person, but I don't know how much money he was given, because a lot of times they would give, if it was $5, the African got pennies, and the other person got the $4.90. I don't know I don't know exactly what the arrangement was, but Robert Smalls. Oh, let me show you a picture of Robert Smalls. Robert Smalls eventually, a lot of people know about Robert Smalls. Robert Smalls was the bomb. That's Robert Smalls. Okay, 1839 to 1815. So, what happened? So Robert Smalls got married to a woman named Hannah Jones in 1856. And so at this time, he was 17 years old. But one of the things they said in both of these stories about Mary Trevester and even with Robert Smalls, even if you were married, African Americans' marriages were not acknowledged. So you could be married, but your marriage was not acknowledged by the state. It was just like that was just agreement between y'all. It's crazy. But by 1861, when the Civil War broke out, Mr. Smalls was elevated to crew member on the Planter. On the Planter. So the Planter was a ship that he was now going to be. I didn't get my pictures together. Let me see the Planter. Can I get it? Can I get the Planter? And so what happened is one day it had an all white crew, and then it had an all black crew. So one day the all white crew said, "We're gonna leave," and they docked the ship and said, "We're gonna go on land. We're gonna go ashore. Y'all got it." And the Planter, and so the Planter was docked in the Charleston Harbor, and it was a ship that was used to transport the Confederate Army back and forth, up and down the water, right? But at this point, this is when they were saying that the Union was really losing very badly, because, like I said, they're fighting on. When you find somebody else's territory, how you gonna win? You can't, unless you get help. And so for us, it was the black people. So the folks decided they were going to leave the ship, and they left all the black crew on there. So, but apparently Robert Smalls had already made this plan. Now, mind you, he is a child in 1860. Let's see, 1861. He was born in 1839. This boy won't but like 20 years old, 21 years old, something like this. And he said, "Okay, they're leaving. When they leave, who wants to escape?" And everybody who raised their hand said, "I." And the ones who were like, you ain't gonna get me in trouble, they left the ship. And so he said, good. Now, because he was on this ship all the time, he knew all the signals. He knew all how the captain would be dressed. And because, he was fair skinned, he was able to pass. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. Who was going to really look that hard? The ship was passing. And so this was their decision. So in 1862, on May 12th, which is today, 164 years ago today, while the white crew members left the ship, he and his cohorts said, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down, we're going to take this boat out, and then we're going to pull over, and we're going to get all our family members. And I think they said about 16 people were on the boat. And then, because he had been sailing up and down by this time, you remember he'd been down there since he was a teenager. So he knew how to navigate this ship and all of that. This brother took that ship and the planter passed 3 Confederate forces at Fort Sumter and Fort Moultrie by acting exactly like the white captain in his stance. He was standing like him, appearing like him, and making all the signals the very same way that man did it. And as soon as the planter got out of the range of the Confederacy, he approached the Union. Now, I don't know exactly how he was able to get them to say, not me, but I think he probably put up a surrender flag or whatever. And he signaled signaled the surrender of the ship. Now, not only did he successfully turn over the planter to the Union, but do you know he piloted the ship in several battles with the Confederates? I know they were big mad. Here is this black dude who stole the ship and then used the ship, piloted the ship, in battle against y'all. Don't play with black people. I will find a planter ship, planter ship. It's just crazy. It is crazy. Anyway, so this is the planter. This is the ship that he stole and used it to fight against the Confederacy. So now his most petty achievement, because he was a trip. He was a complete trip. At the age of 25, he had this big prize for his service in the Civil War, right? And for, the ship and everything like that. This dude went and bought Henry McGee's plantation, the mansion of Henry McGee, because his former slave owner. And at the age of 25, it's crazy. And he went on to become a famous politician. But he bought the plantation. I was done. I was through. He went on to become he led a boycott in Philadelphia against the streetcar. So apparently he got on the segregated streetcar, and I think that was, I don't know when that was, but he was in Philadelphia, and they put him in jail, and he sued them. And then let's see, he served as a representative in the state house of South Carolina, and then he was a U.S. congressman from 1875 to 1887. And during his term in office, he advocated for free public education and equality for African Americans. And so, these two people, I tell you the truth. And then, I've already done Mary Bowser. It just shows you these people don't know us. And if anything, it should encourage us. Do not be dismayed or overwhelmed with what these people are doing right now, taking away our rights. Because we still got Robert Smalls, and we got this Mary Trevester, and we've got these folks that I was talking to you about last week. Golly, Scoble and John Scoble, who was the other guy who was on the river. He was what was his name in Washington D.C. Uh, he was traveling with them. Oh, Ringgold, and then this other guy. His name was who was the other guy? Um, I can't remember the other guy's name. He was at Fort Monroe. Oh yeah, what was his name? George Scott. So these are 5 people that we know of, and if you include Mary, that's 6 people that we know of who were doing what they had to do as Black spies. And so we can't be discouraged because we have the blueprint. We got a blueprint. Anyway, I shall.
Because we got the blueprint and we're ready to have a blueprint all along those lines, and all kinds of exciting things going on, including our regular commercials. But we've also got your show coming up. So I did manage to get those in and everything like that. So let's check this out and everything like that. So we're going to actually meet the cast. So let's check out Mama Noni, and she introduces some of the cast. And I think I got both videos, but I might play them not back to back, but one at a time. So let's start off with this one.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. We would love it if you would come to see our major production called A 10-City Tale, Babatunde.
Thanks, Sya proudly present A 10-City Tale, Babatunde. Do you have a business? I support family. Zeus. As a starring act.
It's a spiritual journey, and we would love it. Please come and see the amazing work that our children can do. The theater, the dance, the acting. It's going to be amazing.
$20.
This year's production is called A 10-City Tale, Babatunde. It is a powerful, student-driven theatrical experience featuring original storytelling, dance, and performance rooted in culture and community. Advertise in our playbill. Promote your business while supporting youth, culture, and arts. Peace.
Thank you.
There you go. And we'll get to one of the other commercials, and then we got your regular one too. But yeah, that was a good one. And let's play both of them. But let me get to this one about.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
One more about the play that you sent me, and then we've got the one that is the regular one, and then we'll get on out of here. But this is the other one that you sent me and everything like that.
It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say, is even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene. Days go by, it's the bigger love of the family.
Great. So folks can check that out. That'll be coming your way on June 4th, so folks can check it out. Will there be any sort of matinee performance or just the one evening performance?
Just that one evening performance. It's all I can do to get this one done.
I understand.
We may have to repeat later another time. But yeah. And then with this year has been hard.
Okay, so we'll go out with the regular commercial and all along those lines, but sometimes it can be difficult. But I know they'll do great, and hopefully they'll do a videotaping of it as well. So maybe we'll get a chance to see it, even though we've got an event with Yazra at Haytime. But maybe we'll get a chance to see it on video or something like that. But
There you go. Thank you.
Right now, let's go ahead and get us out of here with our regular video.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course, I walk into the sound of drums.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course, I know my mother.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course, I can play the drum.
I'm a St. Sya student. Of course I can work with my hands.
I'm a St. Sya student.